Osio Doichu, Dawado Kuno Halia Dandakanagiska Talaki Hanyanwia. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my brothers and sisters, wherever you may be on this earth today. I want to give thanks to God for all that I have, my family, roof over my head, food on the table. Um, I want to give thanks to my brothers and sisters who are in the struggle every day to educate and enlighten our people to a greater knowledge and understanding to what who we are and what we must do as a people on the earth today for the human family and the collective of the human family. And what I mean by that is destroying the myths of colorism. Now, the topic of discussion today is the KKK on the move. And what does that mean? Well, just to jump right into it, if we look at the Ku Klux Klan, and a lot of its organizations, sub-organizations that are linked to it, the Nazis, skinheads, whatever they refer to themselves as, but are directly linked with its history to the Klan in this country, which actually precedes Nazism, because we know the Klan has been around since the 1860s. But it really, in essence, racism has been around since this country's inception. Come on, let's get real with it. And stop playing, with the numbers or history. Ever since the European has been on the march, the white male, blue-eyed, blonde-haired European has been on the march. His task has been to destroy the darker peoples, not just where he is, but globally. That is a fact that can't be disputed because wherever he has gone, what has he done? He's destroyed the darker peoples from the darkest to the lightest and has played a psychological game of favoritism, just like a mother who plays favoritism with her two daughters. She might like one over the other, or her two sons. Daddy might like one over the other. So he has played with us somewhat similarly in terms of the darkest and the lightest. The Willie Lynch syndrome, he has played games with our people since time immemorial. And with the Latino community, you know, our lighter brown brothers and sisters, wherever they may be, he's always gone into people's countries and used that dynamic to divide the darker peoples, period. And like our people today who have not studied or researched or don't know anything about his historical influence with regards to divide and conquer strategies, if he does not do these things, he knows that we will meld into his society, his circles, his political arenas, and we will ultimately we will play fair in business, most like in more cases than none. We will play fair in economics and political circles. He will never play fair in those circles, but we would play fair. It's just that he knows globally that the darker peoples outnumber the European, or should I say the white race. I'm just dealing with statistical facts here. We outnumber him 11 to 1 around the globe, the darker peoples. And if any of our people are disillusioned to believe the opposite of that, well, I would just challenge you to do your research. These Europeans, these white people who are in Congress right now, the African Party, they know that our numbers are increasing. It's written of in the book of Exodus. I submit to my family, go read it. You might don't have to be religious. Just go read it. It's there. It talks about especially dealing with the slaves. And this is another um, issue that some of our people really need to look at. And that is fear. Fear of taking over one's kingdom. These people fear that we will one day rule and that ultimately we will take over their kingdom that they built upon the backs of the darker peoples. Period. So I always try to engage my audience by being critical in your thinking, but not just thinking. Study, research yourself, because I wasn't born with the information and knowledge that I have. I didn't go to college. Barely made it out of high school, but I'm not illiterate. I understand that we are living in times today that are very dangerous, and because of ignorance and illiteracy, that we are that much closer to bloodshed, conflict, and war. Which, if you look at on the globe right now, we are at war anyway. In Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, the Middle East, they're at war. There's all of these conflicts that are going on right now, and what is this all about and over? It's political. It's also about control and power, land grabs. Because what's his name? Netanyahu is doing in Israel is monstrous, to say the least. They have expanded their boundaries of the claim that they are fearful from the Palestinians, killing them. To now they have expanded their war into other states within the Middle East. So we really have to look at what the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, and expand its horizons for the European. Because when we look at Israel, these are white folks. These Jews, they're still white people, especially the what do you call it, the unorthodox. So many of you who don't know or understand the Orthodox Jew and the unorthodox Jew. The unorthodox Jew is the one who follows the Torah and the laws explained therein. The unorthodox is those that are basically suits. Some of them, yeah, wear the yarmulkes on their head, but they're business people. They either wealthy, somewhat, or aspiring to, but they don't follow the laws. They follow what's in their heart, meaning they're greedy, and they don't care how they attain their wealth. They will hurt whomever, even family members, to get where they want to be in life. And so what this is when Jesus of 2,000 years ago was talking about, you are of your father the devil, because if you were of my father, you would hear the truth that I am speaking, but there is no truth in you. This is in the book of Matthew, in the book of Revelations, talking about the Jews of old. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out. And I'm not saying all Jews are like this, but I'm talking about the Zionist Jews that are within the government, that are committing acts of what do you call that, war crimes, for the sake argument that they're in fear of their lives. When you look at that whole area in the Middle East, that place called Israel, that was Palestine, and it was not called Israel. So I challenge my viewing audience to do your own investigative research. This is what the powers that be fear. The masses of people waking up to the manipulation. They're playing a chess game. They know the majority of the people are ignorant. So they're using that ignorance against our people today to play their deadly games. And that game is getting more and more dangerous every day. All right, so let me get back to what I really wanted to talk about was the KKK here in America. I was just watching a news uh, commentary just for yesterday. It was talking about the Ku Klux Klan in Tennessee. Now, again, they have different names for themselves now, and they have been to make it look as though or appear as though that they're nonviolent, that they are excommunicated from their former selves, the Ku Klux Klan, that they are no longer a terroristic, violent organization. Listen, I don't care if they have on white robes, with a pointed head sheet plucked out with two eyes on it, or they're wearing, black or brown shirts, and jeans on. they're still screaming nigger. I remember just what 15 years ago watching a documentary about the Klan in America and how they were spreading their ideology, if you want to call it that, their hate rhetoric, and that they said they were getting a hold of their people, and the recruitment of their people was up some 20 or 30% around the country, and they were having their little what do you call that? Their protest rallies and confrontations with the police and some of the counter demonstrators, people of color, even some white people who were protesting and demonstrating against the Klan, but they were nonetheless still stating and claiming that they were on the move. This is some 15 or more years ago, and they're saying, "Look, we're on the rise." I remember, and I quote one of them saying, "Look out, N word, we're getting bigger." And again, 15 years ago, I remember hearing this as a documentary. It's probably on YouTube. You know, So what was it? What are they saying to us? They're getting bigger. They're growing. So are they just in? How should I put it? The rural South, um, where the Klan first gave birth. I've heard it was in Halifax, Tennessee, in 1865. They called themselves the Ghosts of the Confederacy. Malcolm X taught us once that if you are south of the Canadian border, you are down south. So I don't believe in this whole thing that the Klan is limited or restricted to just the South. Now, do I believe that there are a greater majority of them down there? Yes, I do. But just like a fox, just like a fox who you see coming, you see the fox smiling, but right when it's too late, that's when you see his teeth. So a fox is slick. So you got plenty of foxes running around in two-piece suits, who have sharp teeth waiting to attack. Now look at the Republican Party in Congress. It's going on right now that are supporting Trump. Some people were saying at one point in time that the Republicans were supporting Trump because they were scared. I never believed that from the beginning. I never ever believed that. Scared? You really scared? Scared of what? Some of their families being threatened? I mean, who's ever really been in politics, and that hasn't really happened to them, in the past? Because, excuse me, the those that are in the party know that the racist ideologies have been in the that political landscape. It's nothing new. They've been there, so it's nothing new. So I'm to believe that a lot of them were fearful. That's why they didn't go against Trump. And then you look at the speech that Trump gave just the other day, and all of those Africans that were standing up and cheering, like it was a circus parade. The fear, really? Fear? No. They want to become a part of something that they believe is in their best interest. And what is that? Let's come on. Let's keep it real here. What is it that they feel as though that they must be a part of? It is the browning of America. Remember, Biden spoke on that when he left office. He said the Hispanic community in the population, still another code words for the darker peoples, because you got black and brown Hispanics. So you know what? The ones that the lighter ones or the white looking ones who some of them do have hate for black people. I know I'm from the Bronx. I've seen some Puerto Rican families discriminate against black and brown peoples. Personally, myself growing up with my peoples who were Jamaican or Black American, and I'm Black and Native American Indian. You've never heard that come out of my household. All my brothers and sisters was black and brown. Never had any racism against our own people and I wasn't raised that way. But some of them, in that regards, were raised that way, and that goes all the way back to the Spanish Moorish War. A lot of people don't understand why Hispanics are the way they are today. The Spanish colonies did that, going all the way back to the 13th and 14th centuries. See, people got to understand today's based on yesterday and tomorrow's based on today. So if you don't understand what happened, this is why I always encourage my brown or lighter Hispanic brothers and sisters, you got to do your research and find out where your mothers, your grandmothers, and your great grandmothers and grandfathers got this sense of hate from. Where did it come from? You know, the Spanish Moorish wars that took place, you know, from the 12th century all the way up to the 14th and 15th centuries. They embedded that within to keep the darker from the lighter and arguing with each other, giving you a language of Spanish and giving the darker language of English and French, you know, other languages that we may not be able to speak to each other or understand one another, but they told the lighter ones, the light skinned ones, almost look white, that they were better than their cousins, their own family members, because we related, but because of language and ignorance, false teachings, we have been divided. All right, so the human family is broken up. Now here we being played by our enemy. Some of us when reading nothing don't understand. I was speaking to this well, we had a very small dialogue. I forget the sister's name. I'm not even going to call her out, but she's talking about like people my complexion and lighter. My daughter's like a high yellow complexion. She's black, and people really don't understand the concept of blackness. They really don't scientifically. Scientifically, I'm going to do that on another show. But she had the nerve. She looked at me and said, "Oh, you're not black." She had no idea who I am. She knows nothing about me, but she gonna sit there and tell me I ain't black. I said, you know, I told her, I said, sister, I'm from the Bronx, right? All my brothers and sisters that I hung out with were black. I ain't hung out with no white folks in my neighborhood where I'm from in the northeast part of the Bronx. None. They said, well, you know what are you, racist? No. My area was segregated. It was naturally like that. When I was raised, where I was raised, there was hardly any white people. That's not my fault. So when me and my homeboys were hanging out, we fought against Italians and other whites who lived across. Y'all, many of y'all know, especially down south, know what I'm talking about. White folks lived across on the other side of the tracks, you know. And for up in the northeast Bronx, we're talking maybe like a couple few miles away from where I live, that they did have areas that were segregated, and those areas were predominantly white. And we would have to go through there sometimes to get to places where we wanted to be. And when you're a teenager, you either get on the bus or you take the train or you walk. Some cases we walk. We came across Italians, Albanians who looked at us, nigga, get out of here. We don't want you. But me and my homies, we fought. We didn't run. We didn't run. We had battles with these people. You know what I'm saying? And all my brothers who I'm very close to this very day from the Bronx, we still close. And I'm gonna be 58 soon. We still close. Brothers who I know I do battle with to fight my enemies. But I get it. Some of our people are so goddamn ignorant, it's unbelievable. But I told the sister, I said, you go on. I said it's better to light a candle than to curse the dark. That comes out of the scriptures. Be careful what comes out your mouth. If you're not ready to back up that what you say, you want to sit there and label all of the darker peoples as being racist. Now we understand the fact that today we're living in a divisive society. It's not of our making. It's not of our making. So it's a fine line that we dealing with in terms of crossing to either extend a fig leaf, excuse me, or we're pulling away from people who we deem offensive or racist. But black people got to identify that we have racism within our ranks, and that comes from the Willie Lynch syndrome. For those of you who know the stories, or the Willie Lynch letters, who read the Willie Lynch letters regarding the dark and the lighter. Willie Lynch actually expanded the concept of divide and conquer amongst the darker people, especially during slavery, when there was uprisings that was going on in IT, which they call Haiti today, and they were fearful in the Caribbean and North America. They were fearful of uprisings because, listen, word got around, word got around that our people were rebelling against slavery and that we were freeing ourselves. And when they found out that there was black people in Haiti with the indigenous peoples, they were hanging white people from trees. They got scared. They said, "Boy, we're gonna have to come up with something. It's gonna have to be on a psychological level," because they knew that on plantations, sometimes they were up to 100 slaves with only a dozen, from the plantation owners to the overseers to the slave catchers. That, and you figure this up to what, about 18 people managing 100 slaves. Anything went wrong, they know that that could cost their lives, so they had to deal with the slaves and deal with us wisely. If you haven't read the Willie Lynch letters, I would suggest you go read it. It's online now. Some are explaining it, verbatim. They're telling you what that story was, and how it was a program, and how it applies today to our people. So some of us who are so high and mighty and up in the heavens with God Himself are sitting back there pointing fingers at everybody when you haven't addressed the elephant in the room with regards to our own people. The light skin hating dark skin hating light skin. Where the hell do you think that came from? And it's because of ignorance that we being played amongst our own people. Because you haven't read a damn thing but know everything. All right, so excuse my French a little bit there. I do get passionate with regards to this subject matter because I believe it's important. We are on the threshold of a conflict in this country that was forewarned. I've spoken on this in many of my other videos that I've given, and the problem persists of ignorance. That, listen, the blind leading the blind, we all gonna end up in the ditch, right? So ignorance is, there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse. However, black people have the right to be upset with those of us within the Hispanic community who would align with our enemies, who are playing us against each other, who are being duped into believing that because of their skin color, the lack thereof, that they're rubbing elbows with those of them who are against our people, that we would they would feel like they're better inclined to benefit from our demise or our pain and suffering. So they cling like a drunk clinging to his bottle, his last bottle of wine, for redemption. And so we are today clashing. It's all over the net, social media, and people are arguing amongst themselves. And God said that, look, if you can't get along, I'm going to separate you. Now you think about that. If we can't get along, you're just going to separate our people and put everyone into their own country of origin and where they come from. Now you think about separation here in America. Oh God, almost what, 370, 80 million people, all nationalities of every kind. Think about that process. How would something like that look on the surface? Is it going to be cordial, respectful, and people are going to go willingly? And who's to go? Think about, that's another thing to think about. Who's going? Some people have, I'm going anywhere. I'm from here. Some people got maybe a generation or two here, three. And so some people who just got here, they don't want to. Where am I going? I got nothing back home where I'm from. Where am I going? We're looking at a mess, a problem. So now you got white people who are not from here. I don't care if they've been here 3, 4 generations. How did they get this country? Through ill-gotten gains. They stole it. but they'll sit back there and say this is theirs. You know, we steal a package of a product from a store and we go sell it to someone else. That person who bought it, if he gets caught, he goes to jail for purchasing item or product that was stolen, and you're aiding and abetting a crime. So here we are, America, this whole country, this continent was stolen. It's up for sale. People are buying and investing in this whole property, and because this has gone on for what, 300 years or more. I mean, so between the French, the Spanish, um, and the English, who are the Americans today, they fought to steal this land from the indigenous peoples. However you want to look at them, whether they be black, dark skinned, brown, red, yellow, they weren't white people that owned this land, and that's a fact. They stole it. So reparations, when people talk about reparations, is that something that needs to be discussed? As absolutely, but it needs to be a discussion that's not going to take another 100 years. When other nations have received reparations for their suffering, and the darker peoples have not received a dime, not a penny, for the pain and suffering of our people. All right. So excuse me for going off into that little tangent, but I'm going back to the Klan. All right. So I'm watching this documentary about the Klan, and they're having what's called fighting amongst themselves. They're having fist fights, hand to hand combat training. I'm sure some of you have seen this, and preparation for battle. We know that anyone knows that has done any research on these people, and I have been following them since I was a little boy. When I remember the first actual lynching that I saw. Now I'm 58 in 2 months, right? Hear me. 1980, I think it was 1980 or 81. A brother by the name of McDonald, I can't remember his first name. He was lynched in the South. I think it was Alabama. He had went to the store. He was 14 years old. This was in 80 or 1981, and he never made it back home. Three white Klansmen kidnapped him. They caught him on the street. They were just driving by and they saw him, grabbed him up, beat him to a pulp, and then they hung him on a tree on a street. And this is the first time I was about 13, 14 years old seeing it. And I think I remember my mother mumbling something about, the Klan, at it again. And I think I remember her shaking her head saying she couldn't believe that this was still going on. Now, albeit that our people, and this is a goddamn shame, that our people do not talk to our children. Maybe today to some degree, that they must, our children, especially our children, and even our mothers, our sisters, our aunties, they must be careful walking around in the streets, especially at night, that something terrible or horrible could happen to them because of these racist organizations are still around, and they are exacting terror on our people. So this brother was hung on a tree on a main street in the early 80s. I never forgot that shit. Excuse my language. But I get, my blood pressure rises a little bit because even at this age 58, I've never forgotten that. And because of that incident, I always looked at some white people side eye, because you don't know which one of them has the poison to kill at a moment's notice or glance. One of the they caught all three of these white men, and I think that they either one of them got one of the I think he had some level of um, repentance that he was sorry for what he had done. Snuffed the life out of a young brother, 14 years old, just for walking down the street being black. You know, these things tear at your heartstrings if you have a heart. Here we are now in 2025. Lynchings are on the rise again. They're not the mainstream news organizations are not referring to these crimes as terroristic. Not not the mainstream media. Some subdivisions that are on social media who are not beholden to the major oligarch corporations. They can't use this rhetoric to talk about their own people. Huh? Sort of reminds me of January 6th. Come on, let's talk about it, people. What happened January 6th? Let's get into the psychology of January 6th. Not one white officer, even the one who has spoken out against his own people, who's been receiving death threats, whose mother was attacked because he spoke out against January Sixers. They threw fecal matter on his mother. But I reflect on this for a reason. Not one white male officer shot their weapon at the crowd of the people that were there. Why is that? This is a serious issue. There was only one officer who fired his weapon, and that was the brother who was inside the Capitol when that white woman who was in the Air Force was about to break down the glass doors. And they did actually uh, go through those doors. But as she was climbing through, that brother shot her because, if I'm not mistaken, the some of the congressmen and women were, but maybe what, 30 yards away from that breach, and he let off his weapon because if she had gotten through, then the rest of them would have came through. So another, this brother saved the lives of those congressional representatives. Think about that. But when it came to these January Sixers, now there were some black officers that were there, and look at the psycho. I want y'all to pay attention to what I'm about to tell you here. None of the other black officers let off any rounds. Why? Because psychologically, if I kill one of these white people, I don't know what's going to happen to me. But the white male officers there, nothing. Now we know if that dynamic had been reversed, if that crowd had been majority black with the white officers out there, we would have had a bloodbath. There's not too many people that I say this to who would dispute this fact. So here we are with the Klan, law enforcement, lynchings, murderous police. Some, what's his name? This Jewish, I can't remember his name. Just the other day, this Jewish man who has a channel on YouTube, can't remember his name, was calling for Derek Chauvin to tell Trump to have Derek Chauvin released from prison after we know he was directly responsible for George Floyd's murder. We got a serious problem with this here, because if Trump starts releasing these people, these officers, and if you look at within the past 20 years, white male police officers who were directly responsible unjustifiably in the killing of black men and some black women too, Sandra Bland, and the name, the lists are innumerable. They're talking about pardon. I knew this was coming before it was even uttered because Trump let all of those who were charged with January 6th for their crimes committed immediately pardon 99.99% of those people. So what are we saying that the Klan has grown. So we got to think beyond the scope of white sheets and these cone heads with two plucked out eyes, pillow sheets or whatever you want to call them. Politics. They talking about a coup d'etat. So who took over the government now? A racist government. We know that. But we got to ask the question: how far are they willing to go? Are they in collusion with these fringe groups? If I was a betting man, you know what my answer is going to be. And do we have something to fear with regards to law enforcement becoming more emboldened? Or are we not seeing this in real time playing out? Instances of brothers being killed, sisters being killed outright unjustifiably by police, white male police officers around the country. And this is the call. There was ever a cry for being focused and paying attention to our immediate surroundings of where we are, and as a people to recognize, stop and cut out the foolishness with your brother just because he's a few shades lighter than you, or your brother and sister who are a few shades darker than you is your enemy. And they speak another language. So what? Some of us barely speak English. So our people need to wake up and recognize who our real enemy is, and that's ignorance and stupidity first. And then the man who was right in front of us, who is planning our demise, regardless of what complexion you are. You open your mouth. For some of us, because of fear, we won't speak up and say this directly because we fear him. I only got one life to live. You know, growing up where I come from, you know how many times I faced death in the Bronx amongst my own, fighting in the streets. I think about that all the time. Why? Because I said, man, when I was a teenager and young and dumb and, you know, not understanding the system that was set up with obstacles that I would trip over and ultimately end up in prison or dead, because that's the statistical reality. Our people, what, 65 to 70% of us locked up in their prisons by accident or by design. I came close to ending up a statistic either in prison or in a casket. We playing checkers amongst chess players. But yet we're the greatest people on the planet. We're the smartest people on the planet. So how could we be so dumb? Yeah, we studying our history now. We come from the greatest, the Kuti, pyramid building, ancient Kemet, yeah, all of that. But look at us now. Every time I turn on the goddamn news, down south in Memphis, Tennessee, Louisiana, Virginia, brothers shooting brothers down like dogs in the street. Brothers killing the baby's mothers. A brother killed his baby's mother, stabbed her 100 times. Took his 2-year-old boy. A dark-skinned brother took his 2-year-old boy and threw him to the alligators. Automatic, systematic, remote control niggas. How the hell do you do something like that and be proud of who we're supposed to be because we come from a great people. Yes, if we come from a great people, then who the hell are we today? Nothing but niggas, bitches, and hoes. But we all over YouTube acting like we are so high and divine now. Yeah, I found my Kemetic history. I was raised by Kemetic priests, brothers who come from ancient so-called Egypt, who studied the mystery systems. I was raised by these brothers when I was in my late teens, early 20s, who understands the coming forth by day, the resurrection of the spirit and the soul of our people, the knowledge of self, gnosis. One of the titles on the Kunti says, the first law, man, know thyself. Huh? But we don't have the knowledge of who we are. We still have the negative spirit that was imprinted upon us within the last 400 years. We still carry the names of those who oppressed our people and think that we free. Freedom comes with knowing who you are first, the origins of your people. You must know who you are in order for you to change your thinking so you can have a different or a better reality. And it must be on an individual, then a collective level. We must do it step by step, piece by piece, brick by brick, to build a new house for our people. These things are essential to the building blocks of a new society. We are an old and ancient people, but have been destroyed for the lack of knowledge. What are we doing? While they're preparing for our death. I'm talking about outright murder. Outright murder. That's what the Klan is preparing for. Scripture says that because our people do not return to God, He's going to put the red serpents on us. Oh my goodness. The red serpents. Think about that for a minute. How? Why? Because we love bloodshed. And whose blood are we shedding? Our own. You know, when a people have been laid so low that they can't see or smell their own shit that they're laying in, we end up in the ground. I I remember someone sent me a video about this brother who did this. He was doing like a spoken word. He was rapping, but he was knocking on the table, and it was, I think it's, I see dead people. Saw the video the other day, and he was talking about how he saw dead people coming out of the ground, and they were wiping the dirt off of their white shirts. And I said, wow. I said, that's deep. The sister who sent me the video was saying, does that represent our people killing each other? Oh, I said, not quite. Because I understood his vision, um, given to me by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He said that, and understanding the principles of the ancient Kemetic sciences coming forth by day, um, and that's by Wallace E. Budge, where he had some merits to his interpretations of ancient Kemetic sciences and history, uh, but it wasn't total in his interpretation. The 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 coming out of death is mental and spiritual, cultural, linguistical, the language. Our people have been dead. So the coming out of the ground, the zombies, And then the white shirt represents the soul, because white really represents nothingness. It represents the empty. But the soil that they're wiping off, that's coming out of darkness, of one's mental enslavement. And him seeing this is like a revelation for him, um, that in order for us to be cleansed, we must, the garments that we currently wear, those garments are spiritual garments. And like a sheet that's been washed in the washing machine, or it's been washed of the soil, it's clean. Now you have something new to work with. It's not necessarily the color, but it represents a resurrection or a new start, coming clean, empty, and starting over, but coming to life out of darkness. And I explained that to the sister, and okay, she understood what I said to her. So our people are still soiled with the garments of this wicked Western system that we are currently under, and we must come out of the ignorance, the darkness of our ourselves, that is not of our own doing. But in order for us to wipe the our spirits, our soul clean from the soil that has been imprinted upon us for the past 400 years, we must study. We must study our past. And I ain't talking about Martin Luther King or the Civil Rights era, even though that's important. If you don't know it, we must go back much further, contrary to what our enemies have been teaching us, that we are limited, that we have no history beyond slavery, which is one of the greatest lies ever told. So it's important that we research this. The only way you come out of darkness and you rid yourselves of the soil of Western ignorance, um, which is death upon our people. We must do this. So, my people, we have a dilemma for the conscious community. What are we going to do when the Klan comes for you? Well, not bad boys, because we know who the bad boys are anyway. What are we going to do when the Klan comes for you and they're not wearing white sheets anymore? Huh? What are we going to do? What is our preparation, our plan? I think it's sad, um, that again we are still lost for understanding what we are facing. Um, chat, excuse me. All right, remember to guard your. Hold on one second, people. Messages with this family visible. I was trying to do a live chat here, but I guess nobody's on. So okay, yeah. So excuse me. What are our people planning? We have organizations like the Panther Party and other organizations that are waking our people up. And so funny you think about what happened in Ohio and Lincoln Heights. And there's nothing funny about that at all. But you think about what happened in Lincoln Heights recently, that the Nazis, Klan, skinheads, care what you want to call them, they all racist, violent white people, and white men in particular. They were in Lincoln Heights on the overpass right next to the black community with their flags, waving them over the highway, the gate, over a bridge. And of course, the local community saw this. They came out in numbers. They wasn't having it. They came out with their guns. This is the type of shit that these people are pushing at us with very little government interdiction. So if local law enforcement is treating them with kid gloves, because what did they do? They came out there telling black people, oh, it isn't worth it. It isn't worth it. You know, black people are incensed. Are we not supposed to be angry? These people and their forefathers, even to this day, have been responsible for lynching black people since time immemorial in this country. So you mean to tell me that these people get carte blanche to go anywhere they want to set up their hateful symbol? So when the police showed up, they're pushing black people back. Some of them wouldn't have it. They're pushing back on the police. Good for them to get them out of there. So the police, in recognizing the volatility of the situation, we better get them out of here before we have something that we're not going to be able to deal with. It wasn't enough of them out there. So they let them line up. They got in their U-Haul trucks illegally. All of these men in the back of a U-Haul truck congregating in a U-Haul truck that's moving. That's illegal. But they did nothing. And they let these people drive their U-Haul truck to a nearby black and brown school, elementary school at that. Like literally across the street, where they could this open the doors on the truck, get out, and reassemble. I guess somebody said something, or they saw and said something, and I think the police had to uh, redirect their focus again and get them even out of that area. What is law enforcement telling our people? What are they saying to our people? We don't care about you. We're not going to do anything to these people because we look at them as our brothers and sisters. January 6th, we're not going to hurt them. Some of them are our brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews. And why would we hurt our own? You have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. It's simple math. That's their relatives. These people are planning violence against us. What are we doing? And they are committing violence against us. And they don't want us to speak on these issues. They got us so full of fear. That's not the God that I worship. You kill my cat, you better watch your dog. That's all I got to say, man. But our people had better learn to be proactive, to go out there and speak to our children, tell them stop killing themselves, offer them a better way of life, and teach them that there is an enemy afoot that is out to kill them because of the color of their skin. It's not a day that goes by I don't talk to my son and my daughter. I tell them every day. I don't get it. Why is it that we're so lackadaisical in talking to? Because we got too much Jesus, too much. I must love my enemy. You get your children killed. It's a sad day, that we only respond in just local communities, that we are not corresponding with each other from the East Coast to the West Coast with regards to the security and well-being of our people who are being targeted daily by the forces that be. What are we doing? And then when all hell breaks loose, the tears are going to flow, the blood is going to flow, and they're going to ask the question, why? We're not better prepared. If our people would learn an economic boycott, which some of us are doing, see what we did to Target the other day. That's one thing that he respects: power through the gun and power through the pocket. He respects that, the economic power that our people possess. If more of us, but we must constantly remind ourselves of this. Like American people, I've talked to you now. Some of us too liberal in our thinking, but there are other black people besides black Americans that come from other countries that are waking up slowly. Where is it that they didn't understand racism, so they got here? Now they social media waking up, say, "Oh God, I didn't know America was like this." So now they're seeing it, either being affected by it directly or indirectly. Racism, they didn't know, but now they've been stung, so they're at the resistance table. How can I help? We must we must reach across the table to them and embrace them. They see it now. Good. All right. Yeah, well, some of us have been telling them for the longest time and want to hear it. See, this is why God does what He does and breaks up everything. Because when you're making money and you come from another country, you come here, you think about it back home, and you're making money now. You got your degree. Ain't no such thing as racism. What you talking about? You see, God has a way of showing you that which you don't see or refuse to see because you're in a position of power and economic stability. White people don't like that at my job. Now Trump is across the board. That's why God told our people, you better learn, do for self. He's gonna force us to turn our attention to each other or we're gonna die. Huh? Create your own businesses. We got brains. We're not independent. Most of us work for the man. Most of us have jobs with the man. No independence, but we are fine. There's no racism. Not where I work. I mean, how? So God removed that stability, that comfortability to let you know who your enemies are. You better turn towards your brother and your sister and work now. So some black people have been here for the past 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. You've been here, but you fighting. I'm not working with those West Indians. I'm not working with those Africans. We all have something to offer each other and our cultural differences that we could benefit from in trade, business, commerce, whatever you want to call it. We have something to offer, therefore we have trade value. We don't bring these things to the table for us to benefit from, and therefore we lose. So God is going to force our hand. We'll rise to the top, a boat with buoyancy, and have our sails propped up, and the wind comes, and we're moving forward. Or we're going to have a hole in our sails, and there's a hole in the bow or the rear of the vessel, and we sink together. A boat filled with fools, as Martin Luther King put it. We either work together or die as fools. So here we are being presented with these issues today. And some of us can't seem to extricate ourselves from the BS. We're falling further into the abyss of ignorance and stupidity. Further. I hate such and such. I hate this person. I hate that person. You got so much hate filled within you that you can't see straight. And your enemies are sitting back, just clapping, smiling all over the place because this is exactly what they intended. And while his own house is also divided, amongst himself, which will enter into a civil war possibly, and then a race war. Am I praying for that? Nope. I don't want that to happen. But remember, the Klan, they are positioning themselves for war against the darker people. Remember that. If there's anything you remember about this lecture that I'm giving now, remember that these people are prepping themselves for war against the darker peoples and even some of their own people. And they have been since before I was born, really. They have been preparing for our demise. We're arguing over FBA and adults. Whose foundation, who's not. We worried about reparation and those getting reparation to those who deserve it and don't. And they're pimping you. To my FBA audience, my adults people, pimping you by putting reparations is coming. You know, when they're talking about it, they're talking about putting a bill. How long have they been talking about reparations when they say 80% of the white population is opposed to it? Well, what does that tell you? 80% of white folks are opposed to reparations. Ooh, that's a lot of white folks. Why are they opposed to reparations? Fear of you having more than they do. That has always been the premise for white violence in this country. They did that to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They did that to Seneca Village, Manhattan, Arkansas, California. Wherever there was prosperous black and brown people, what did the neighboring whites do? What did the poor neighboring whites do? I want y'all to hear me on this one. Them niggas got piano. Them niggas got stores and houses. They got everything I don't have. That's what you call envy and jealousy. Do you think that these people today are going to change if they're living in the doghouse and we end up living in the White House? Not the way I want to live, but you get my point. They don't ever want to see us in power like that. It's been that way since the beginning. You sitting up here thinking that they're going to change? You must be crazier than a $25,000 bill. Some of y'all are going to like what I'm saying here. I don't care. I really don't give a damn because I understand what has to come, what must be done for our people. You know, an ancient Native American Indian proverb that says, one arrow you take and you can break it over your knee easily. You get 5 arrows and you try to put it over your knee, it's harder to break. Our people are like that one arrow, splintered, easily splintered because of foolish divisions and misconceptions and ignorance and stupidity because we have not learned. And therefore, people who do not learn are condemned to repeat the same ignorance over and over again. We are faced with death and destruction. It's right at our doorstep. Only we can turn it around through unity and knowledge of self, which brings love and life, as the minister so put it so eloquently, that life is love and love is life, but with the knowledge thereof. So therefore, we must learn and unlearn that which we have been taught and go to our Father, God Himself, investigate, study, read, make ourselves worthy unto God. We must, or we will suffer the consequences of what was forewarned, the prophecies that told our people what was coming if we did not adhere to the warnings that was laid down long before any of us was born, that we would fall into the ditch of ignorance and stupidity and be destroyed. So to my brothers and sisters, I thank you for listening. Um, I hope that I didn't offend anyone, not my intention. But by God's grace, I put before you to give you an understanding of what I know, um, and able to present to my brothers and sisters, that we may be filled with life and love rather than death, uh, that encompasses our lives daily. The shadow of death, that I mean, is the fear that we are faced with in this land today. So I come with a heavy heart, but am hopeful that I can reach a few in my listening audience, that they will take to heart to kindness amongst our people, um, therefore that we may not partake in the sins and the wrath of God that has been promised, that if we did not turn away from this wicked world and its system and program, that it wishes to devour us with. And on that note, I say, Wadoska, many thanks and peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters. Uh, and then Donada, Honey, Anigido, which is peace and blessings until we meet again. I don't.